My name is Bonnie. I'm 52 years old now, and I used to believe in forever. 27 years of marriage. A best friend I'd known for 28 years. I thought those bonds were unbreakable. I thought loyalty meant something. But there are things you don't see coming until they're already destroying you from the inside. And when I finally saw the truth, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I planned. If you've ever trusted the wrong people with your whole heart, you'll understand what I'm about to share. Let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button because this story takes a turn nobody saw coming. I met Gregory when I was 25 years old. We married that same year young and full of hope. Back then, he was working as a software developer at a small tech firm in Portland, Oregon. I was building my career in marketing. We weren't rich, but we were happy. Or, at least I thought we were. We had 2 children. Connor came first, now 26 years old, and working as an engineer up in Seattle. Then Emma, 23, teaching elementary school in Portland. Watching them grow up was the best part of my life. Gregory and I built our world around this family. We bought a 2-story house near Laurelhurst Park. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. About 15 years into our marriage, Gregory started his own company, Tech Vantage. It specialized in enterprise management software. Small at first, just him and 3 other developers working out of a rented office space. But it grew. By the time our marriage fell apart, Tech Vantage employed 45 people and pulled in around $8 million a year in revenue. Gregory owned 85% of the company. The remaining 15% belonged to 3 minority shareholders, Carl Peterson, an early investor, Ellen Torres, who helped with initial funding, and James Wu, a former business partner. I was proud of him, genuinely proud. I'd supported him through the lean years, through the nights he stayed up coding until dawn, through the stress of almost losing everything twice. I believed we were partners. I believed in us. And then there was Diane Carter, my best friend since college. 28 years of friendship. We'd been through everything together. My wedding, where she was maid of honor. Her divorce 5 years ago when I held her while she cried for weeks. We watched movies every Friday night. We shared secrets no one else knew. She was like a sister to me. When Diane's marriage ended, she needed work. Gregory's company was expanding. I suggested he hire her as sales director. It seemed perfect. She was good at sales, charismatic, persuasive. Gregory agreed immediately. Diane started at Tech Vantage 3 years before everything collapsed. She came over for dinner most weekends. She laughed at Gregory's jokes. She helped Emma pick out colleges. She was part of our family. I trusted her completely. The changes started small. Around March of that year, Gregory began working late. Not once or twice, but almost every night. He'd come home past 10, sometimes past midnight. When I asked, he'd say they were closing a big deal with a client in California. Expansion plans, new contracts. It all sounded reasonable. But he started feeling distant. He stopped asking about my day, stopped touching my shoulder when he walked past. His phone became an extension of his hand, always face down on the table, always carried into the bathroom, into the garage, anywhere private. Sometimes it would ring, and he'd step outside to answer. Through the window, I'd watch him pace back and forth, talking in low tones. When he came back in, I'd ask who it was. He'd say a client, a vendor, someone from the office. I wanted to believe him, so I did. I told myself he was just stressed. The company was growing. Growth meant pressure. I made excuses. Diane changed too. We used to meet for coffee twice a week. Suddenly, she was always busy. Too many meetings. Too much travel. When we did see each other, she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. She'd check her phone constantly, smiling at texts she wouldn't explain. One Tuesday in early May, I asked if she wanted to catch a movie that weekend like we used to. She said she couldn't. She was focusing on her career, building something for herself. She needed to prioritize work right now. I felt lonely. My husband was never home. My best friend was pulling away, but I didn't connect the dots. Not yet. Then came the night in late May that changed everything. I'd been at a marketing conference downtown. It ended earlier than expected, around 7 instead of 9. I drove home through the quiet streets of our neighborhood. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and purple. When I turned onto our street, I saw Diane's car. That silver Honda Accord I'd ridden in 1,000 times, parked right in front of our house. My first thought was surprise. She hadn't mentioned she was coming over. My second thought was pleasure. Maybe she wanted to reconnect. Maybe I'd misread her distance. I parked in the driveway and walked to the front door. It was slightly open, not much, just an inch, enough that I could hear voices from inside. Gregory's laugh, low and warm. Then Diane's voice, softer. "We have to tell her soon, Greg. This is getting too complicated." I froze with my hand on the doorknob. Gregory's reply came after a pause. "Not yet. The timing isn't right. She'll destroy everything." My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The world tilted. I pushed the door open. They were sitting on the couch, not touching, but close. Too close. When I walked in, they jumped apart like they'd been burned. Diane's face went white. "Bonnie, you're home early." Gregory stood up quickly. "Hey, honey, we were just going over some sales projections." I looked at both of them, at the wine glasses on the coffee table, at the way Diane's hand had been resting near Gregory's knee before I came in, at the guilt written all over both their faces. "Sales projections," I repeated. My voice sounded strange, hollow. "Yeah," Gregory said. He wouldn't look at me. "Big client presentation next week. We wanted to review the numbers." Diane nodded too enthusiastically. "It's a really important deal. We should probably wrap this up, actually. I need to get home." She grabbed her purse and rushed past me. Didn't hug me goodbye like she usually did. Didn't even say goodbye. Just fled. Gregory cleared the wine glasses. "You okay? You look pale." I wasn't okay, but I said I was fine. Just tired from the conference. That night I lay in bed next to my husband and stared at the ceiling. Gregory fell asleep within minutes. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning I got up early. Gregory was still asleep. I went downstairs and opened my laptop. I started looking at our joint credit card statements. We'd always shared finances. Nothing to hide, we'd said. Except now there was a lot to hide. Charges at restaurants I'd never been to. Expensive ones. Le Pigeon, Canard. Places Gregory claimed he was meeting clients. But there were multiple charges. Weekly. Sometimes twice a week. Always at dinner time. Hotel charges. The Marriott downtown. The Heath Man. Not for conferences. Just single night stays. The dates matched nights Gregory said he was working late at the office. My hands started shaking. I printed everything. Highlighted the suspicious charges. There were dozens. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched them. I paid attention. I noticed patterns. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Gregory would text me around 6 saying he'd be late, working on the California deal. But Carl Peterson, one of the shareholders, mentioned at a company barbecue that the California deal had fallen through months ago. I started checking Gregory's location on the family phone plan. He was supposed to be at the office, but his phone pinged from locations all over the city. The Pearl District, Northwest Portland, once from Diane's neighborhood. I needed proof. Real proof. I hired a private investigator. Her name was Laura Chen. Laura Morrison. A woman in her 40s who came highly recommended. She met me at a coffee shop on Hawthorne, away from anywhere Gregory or Diane might go. "How long do you think this has been going on?" she asked. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe months, maybe longer." "I'll find out," Laura said. She did. 2 weeks later, Laura handed me a manila folder. Inside were photographs, videos, timestamps, evidence that cut through me like glass. Gregory and Diane entering the Marriott Hotel together on a Tuesday afternoon, kissing in the parking garage, his hand on her lower back intimate and familiar. Diane leaving Gregory's office late at night. Him walking her to her car. Them standing close foreheads touching. A video of them at dinner. Not a business dinner. A romantic one. Candlelight. Holding hands across the table. Diane laughing at something Gregory said, her whole face lit up with affection. Laura's report stated they'd been meeting 3 to 4 times per week for at least 7 months. Possibly longer. 7 months. While I was cooking dinner. While I was visiting my mother in the hospital before she died. While I was Christmas shopping for gifts we'd all opened together. While I was believing every lie that came out of their mouths. I sat in my car with that folder and I didn't cry. I thought I would. I thought I'd fall apart. But instead something chilled and hard settled in my chest. Something that felt like steel. I drove home. Gregory was already there watching television. "Hey," he said when I walked in. "How was your day?" "Fine," I said. I went upstairs to our bedroom, closed the door, opened the folder again, and looked at every picture, every timestamp, every piece of evidence that my marriage was a lie. I could confront him. I could scream. I could throw him out. But what would that get me? Half of everything in a divorce, maybe. A messy custody battle, though our kids were adults. His sympathy from mutual friends who didn't know the truth. Diane painting herself as the victim, the other woman who fell in love. No, that wasn't enough. I wanted them to lose everything that mattered. The company, the respect, the future they thought they were building on the ruins of my trust. And I knew exactly how to do it. The next morning I called a law firm, Patricia Walsh and Associates. Patricia had a reputation as the best divorce attorney in Portland, ruthless when she needed to be, fair when possible, but always on her client's side. Patricia was 58 years old, sharp-eyed with gray hair she wore in a sleek bob. She sat across from me in her downtown office and listened while I explained everything. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "You could walk away with half of everything. The house, his retirement, alimony. It would be a clean divorce." "I don't want clean," I said. "I want them to understand what they did." Patricia smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. "Then we'll need to be strategic. Tell me about his company." I told her everything I knew about TechVantage, the structure, the shareholders, the fact that they were looking for investors to expand. Patricia made notes. Then she looked up at me. "How much liquid capital do you have access to?" I thought about it. My mother had passed away the previous year. She'd left me $1.2 million. Gregory didn't know about it because I'd kept it in a separate account, planning to use it for the kids' futures or our retirement. I also had $400,000 in personal savings from years of working. $1.6 million, I said. Patricia nodded slowly. "That's a start, but if you want to do what I think you want to do, you'll need more." Over the next month, I worked with Patricia and a financial advisor she connected me with. His name was Thomas Brennan. Mid-40s, brilliant with numbers, and discreet. Thomas laid out a plan. TechVantage is valued at roughly $10 million based on current revenue. If you want real leverage, you need at least 20 to 30% ownership. That means buying in as a minority shareholder. "How much would that cost?" I asked. "Between $2 and $3 million depending on who's selling." I had $1.6 million. I needed more. Thomas helped me get a loan using my inheritance and savings as collateral, $800,000 from a private lender. Then he put me in touch with an investment broker who helped me make some aggressive moves in the stock market, tech stocks specifically. Things Thomas knew were about to jump. It was risky. I could have lost everything. But over 2 months, I turned that $800,000 into $1.1 million. Combined with what I already had, I now had $2.7 million, enough to buy in. But first, I needed a new identity, not literally, but legally. Patricia helped me file for a legal name change. My full name was Bonnie Victoria Harper. Victoria was my middle name after my grandmother. My mother's maiden name was Ashford. I became Bonnie Victoria Ashford, legally, on paper, a different person. Then we created a limited liability company, Ashford Capital Ventures. All my assets went into this LLC. Any investments, any purchases would be made under this name. Gregory would never connect Bonnie Ashford to Bonnie Harper. Even if he saw the name, he wouldn't think twice. Ashford was common enough. Victoria wasn't a name I ever used. I also changed my appearance. Cut my hair short from shoulder length to a pixie cut. Dyed it darker, closer to brown than the blonde I'd been for decades. Started wearing glasses instead of contacts. Lost 15 pounds through stress and deliberate effort. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. That was the point. At home, I told Gregory I was having trouble sleeping. I moved into the guest bedroom. He barely noticed. He was too busy with his late nights and secret meetings. In August, Thomas approached Carl Peterson. Carl was 68 years old and ready to retire. He owned 10% of TechVantage. Thomas, representing Ashford Capital Ventures, offered to buy his shares for $800,000. Carl accepted. The paperwork went through. By September, I owned 10% of Gregory's company, and he had no idea. The shareholder meetings were quarterly. I didn't attend in person. Thomas represented me. He'd show up, sit quietly, review the financial reports, vote on routine matters. Gregory met him once, shook his hand, asked about Ashford Capital. Thomas said it was a private investment firm based in Seattle, looking to diversify their portfolio. Gregory seemed pleased. New investor meant validation, meant growth potential. I watched from the shadows. I read every report. I learned the business inside and out, and I waited. The first year after buying in was strange, surreal. I went to work every day at my marketing job. I came home to a house where my husband barely spoke to me. We existed in parallel, polite, distant, like roommates who didn't particularly like each other. Gregory stopped pretending to work late. He'd just say he was going out. I'd say, okay. He'd leave. Come back at midnight, smelling like Diane's perfume. I didn't say anything. Connor called from Seattle one Sunday. Mom, are you and Dad okay? Emma said things seem weird. We're fine, I lied. Just busy. You know how it is. I couldn't tell them yet. Not until I was ready. Diane posted on social media constantly. Pictures of fancy dinners, new jewelry, a bracelet that looked expensive, a necklace I recognized from a boutique downtown that sold pieces starting at $2,000. She posted cryptic things. Sometimes happiness finds you when you stop looking. New beginnings are beautiful. Finally feeling alive again. I saw it all. I didn't comment, didn't react, just watched. In December of that first year, TechVantage had its annual holiday party. I was invited technically, Gregory's wife, but he mentioned casually that I didn't have to come if I didn't want to. Too boring. Too much shop talk. I stayed home. Emma came over that night. She'd been invited too as Gregory's daughter, but she chose to spend the evening with me instead. Dad's different, she said. We were making cookies in the kitchen. He's not, I don't know. He doesn't feel like Dad anymore. I hugged her. People change, sweetheart. Do you still love him? I thought about that. I love who he used to be. But that person is gone. She was quiet for a while. Then she said, Are you going to leave him? Eventually, I said, when the time is right. I didn't tell her about the plan, about Ashford Capital, about what I was building in secret. She'd find out soon enough. Meanwhile, my investments were growing. The 10% stake in TechVantage was already worth more. The company hit $12 million in revenue that year. My share increased in value, but I wasn't done. I started taking consulting work on the side, marketing strategy for tech startups. I was good at it. Word spread. Soon I had more clients than I could handle. I hired a small team to help. Within 6 months, my consulting business was generating significant income. I invested everything, every dollar. Thomas guided me. We bought into two other tech startups, small companies with big potential. One of them, a company developing AI-driven customer service tools, exploded. They got bought out by a major corporation for $40 million. My share was $2.5 million. Suddenly, I had $4.2 million in liquid assets. In March, Ellen Torres contacted Thomas. She was one of the other minority shareholders at TechVantage. She owned 15%. She was moving to Arizona, wanted to liquidate. She offered her shares for $1.5 million. Thomas called me. This is it. If you buy her out, you'll own 25%. That's significant voting power. Do it, I said. By April, I owned 25% of TechVantage. Gregory still had no idea who the new major shareholder was. Thomas handled everything. Ashford Capital was just a name on documents Gregory barely read. The quarterly meetings continued. Thomas attended, reported back to me. TechVantage was doing well. Revenue projections for the next year were strong. 15 million, possibly 16. And Gregory was flying high, confident, arrogant. In May, 2 years after I discovered the affair, Gregory asked for a divorce. He sat me down in the kitchen one Saturday morning. Bonnie, we need to talk. I looked at him. Okay. I'm not happy, he said. He couldn't even look me in the eye. I haven't been happy for a long time. I think we've grown apart. I want a divorce. I let the silence stretch. Then I said, Is there someone else? He hesitated. I've met someone, but that's not why I want this. We were already over. Liar. But I didn't say that. I just nodded. All right. He seemed surprised by how easy it was. We can split everything fairly. The house retirement accounts. I'll make sure you're taken care of. How generous. How noble. Patricia handled the divorce proceedings. She dragged them out, demanded extensive financial disclosures, made Gregory's lawyers work for every inch. It took 3 months. In the settlement, Gregory offered me $1.5 million and the house. I accepted. Patricia advised me to take it. Let him think he won, she said. Let him think you're walking away with the scraps. The divorce was finalized in June. 27 years of marriage ended with signatures on paper. 2 weeks later, Gregory and Diane announced their relationship publicly. Photos on Facebook, on Instagram, holding hands at restaurants, taking weekend trips to the coast. Their engagement was announced in August. A small ceremony in September at a resort in Bend. Expensive. Beautiful. I saw the pictures online. I felt nothing. No pain, no jealousy, just a cold anticipation, because I was almost ready. In November, James Wu ran into financial trouble. His other investments had failed. He needed cash fast. He owned 20% of TechVantage. He approached Gregory first, offering to sell for $1.8 million. Gregory couldn't afford it. He'd just paid me the divorce settlement. He'd spent a fortune on the wedding. He didn't have the liquidity. James went to the other shareholders. Thomas jumped on it, offered $2.2 million. James accepted immediately. The paperwork went through in early December. I now owned 45% of TechVantage. Gregory owned 55%. But here's what Gregory didn't understand about corporate governance. Under TechVantage's operating agreement, major decisions required a 60% supermajority vote. Things like appointing or removing executives, major expenditures, strategic direction. Gregory no longer had unilateral control. He needed at least one other shareholder to agree with him, and I was the only other shareholder who mattered. I called Patricia. It's time. She smiled. I could hear it in her voice. Let's do this. The board meeting was scheduled for December 14th, a special meeting. I'd requested it through Thomas, citing concerns about company leadership and direction. Gregory was furious. He called Thomas. What is this about who does Ashford Capital think they are? Thomas remained calm. My client has significant concerns about recent executive decisions. They're within their rights to call a meeting. Tell your client they can voice their concerns directly, Gregory snapped. They will, Thomas said. They'll be attending in person this time. That seemed to calm Gregory down a little. He probably thought he could intimidate some faceless investor, charm them, convince them everything was fine. He had no idea. The morning of the meeting, I dressed carefully. A navy blue suit, professional, powerful. I did my makeup precisely, hairstyled, the glasses I'd been wearing for 2 years now. I looked like Bonnie Ashford, successful investor, not Bonnie Harper, betrayed wife. The meeting was scheduled for 10 in the morning at TechVantage's downtown office, 12th floor, corner conference room with windows overlooking the city. I arrived at 9:45, took the elevator up. Thomas met me in the lobby. Ready? He asked. More than ready, I said. We walked to the conference room. Through the glass walls I could see them. Gregory at the head of the table, Diane to his right in her role as sales director, 5 other senior managers, all waiting. Thomas opened the door. I walked in behind him. Gregory looked up. His eyes widened. For a moment he didn't recognize me. Then he did. Bonnie. His voice cracked. What are you doing here? Diane went pale. Actually pale, like someone had drained the blood from her face. I smiled, sat down across from Gregory. Hello, Gregory. Hello, Diane. Surprise. Gregory stood up. This is insane. You can't just walk into my board meeting. Actually, I said calmly, I can. I'm here as the primary representative of Ashford Capital Ventures. He stared at me. Ashford Capital, that's you. That's me. I nodded to Thomas. He began distributing folders to everyone at the table. Inside were copies of all the share transfer documents, proof of ownership, official records. As you can see, I continued, Ashford Capital Ventures currently owns 45% of TechVantage, which makes me the second largest shareholder in this company. The room was completely silent. Everyone stared at the documents, then at me, then at Gregory. Gregory's face went through several colors, red, white, purple. You bought into my company how? Very carefully, I said. Over 2 years, starting with via Carl Peterson shares, then Ellen Torres, and finally James Wu. Each transaction completely legal. Each one approved by you actually since you signed off on all new shareholders without looking too closely at who they were. Diane made a small sound, almost like a whimper. I turned to look at her. Hello, Diane. You're looking well. How's married life? She couldn't speak, just stared at me with wide, terrified eyes. Let me explain why I'm here, I said, addressing the full room now. For 2 years, Gregory and Diane carried on an affair, while I was still his wife, while Diane was supposed to be my best friend. They lied to me for months, maybe longer, and then Gregory divorced me, married Diane, and thought that was the end of it. I pulled out another document, but it wasn't, because while they were flaunting their relationship, posting pictures online, living their best life, I was building something. I changed my name legally to Bonnie Ashford. I created an LLC, I invested wisely, and I bought my way into this company piece by piece. Gregory had no idea who the silent partner was. None of you did. I looked directly at Gregory. You thought you could throw me away, replace me, move on like our 27 years meant nothing. But actions have consequences. I slid a final document across the table to him. I'm calling for a vote to remove you as CEO of TechVantage effective immediately. Grounds are twofold. First, ethical violations. You engaged in a romantic relationship with a direct report which violated company policy. Second, recent poor performance. You've lost 3 major contracts in the past 6 months due to lack of focus and poor decision-making. Gregory grabbed the document. You can't do this. I own 55%. You need 60% for executive decisions, I said. Check the operating agreement, section 4.7. You wrote it yourself. He looked at Thomas, who nodded. It's true. You need a supermajority. I'll vote against this, Gregory said. My 55% beats your 45. Not if other shareholders agree with me, I said. I turned to the 5 senior managers. 3 of them also held minor equity stakes, 2% each, symbolic mostly, but votes nonetheless. I'd spoken to them privately over the past week, laid out the situation, explained Gregory's ethical violations, his declining performance, his volatile temper that had driven away good employees. One of them, Linda Park, the CFO, spoke up. I agree with Ms. Ashford. This company needs new leadership. Another, David Kim, head of product development, nodded. I second that. That was 10% more, 55% total, including my 45. Gregory looked around the table frantically. Are you all insane? I built this company, and you nearly destroyed it, Linda said quietly. Revenue has stagnated. We've lost talent. Morale is terrible. The affair was an open secret, Gregory. It damaged trust across the entire organization. The vote was called. 7 voted in favor of removing Gregory. Only Gregory voted against. Diane abstained, tears streaming down her face. Gregory was out, effective immediately. Furthermore, I said I'm calling for a second vote to terminate Diane Carter's employment for conflict of interest and unprofessional conduct. That vote passed even faster. 8 in favor. Gregory and Diane against. Diane started crying harder. You can't do this. You're destroying our lives. I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman I'd loved like a sister. This woman who'd betrayed me in the worst possible way. No, I said. I'm just showing you what betrayal feels like. You two destroyed my life first. I'm just returning the favor. I stood up. Gregory, you'll receive the formal termination paperwork by the end of the day. You have 48 hours to clear out your office. Diane, same for you. Security will escort you both out. Gregory lunged toward me. Thomas stepped between us. Don't, Thomas said quietly. Gregory stopped, stood there shaking with rage. You vindictive. Careful, I said. There are witnesses and lawyers. Say what you want, but make it count. He didn't say anything, just grabbed his briefcase and stormed out. Diane followed, sobbing. I waited until the door closed behind them. Then I turned to the remaining board members. I don't want to be CEO. I have someone in mind. His name is Andrew Phillips. He's currently COO at a competitor. I think he'd be perfect for TechVantage. With your permission, I'd like to approach him. Linda nodded. I trust your judgment. The others agreed. The meeting adjourned. I walked out of that conference room with my head high, took the elevator down to the lobby, stepped out into the December cold. It was snowing, light flakes drifting down from a gray sky. I stood there for a moment, face turned up, letting them melt on my skin. I'd won. Completely. Absolutely. And it felt amazing. The weeks after the board meeting were chaotic. Gregory tried to fight the termination, hired lawyers, threatened to sue, but the documentation was ironclad. He'd violated company policy. His performance had declined measurably. And most importantly, the board had voted, legally, properly. His lawyers eventually advised him to drop it. Fighting would only make things worse, cost more money he didn't have. Diane disappeared, deleted her social media accounts, moved out of the condo she and Gregory had been living in. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd relocated to California, trying to start over. Gregory and Diane's marriage lasted 2 months after the board meeting. From what I heard, they spent those 2 months blaming each other. He said it was her fault for being indiscreet. She said it was his fault for being arrogant. The relationship that had destroyed my marriage couldn't survive its own consequences. They divorced in March. Quick, bitter. No love left, just resentment. Gregory had to sell the big house we'd lived in together, the one he'd kept after our divorce. He couldn't afford it anymore. Moved into a small apartment in a less desirable part of town. Got a job as a consultant for a firm in Seattle. It paid a fraction of what he'd made as CEO, I heard all this secondhand. I didn't seek him out, didn't gloat, just moved on with my life. Tech Vantage thrived under Andrew Phillips. Within 6 months, revenue jumped to 18 million. Within a year, 22 million. My 45% share was now worth close to $10 million. But the money wasn't the point. It had never been about the money. It was about showing them that I was stronger than they thought, that their betrayal didn't break me, that I could take the worst thing they'd ever done to me and turn it into power. My relationship with my children healed. Connor came down from Seattle one weekend. We had dinner, just the two of us. "Mom," he said, "what you did, I'm honestly in awe. I mean, I'm not happy Dad and I aren't close anymore, but what you pulled off, that took guts." "It took patience," I said, "and anger and hurt, but mostly patience." Emma took longer to come around. She'd always been close to her father. Seeing him fall so far was hard for her, but eventually she came to me. "I understand why you did it," she said. "We were walking through Laurelhurst Park, the same park I used to take her to as a child. I don't know if I could have done the same thing, but I understand. I didn't want revenge for revenge's sake," I told her. "I wanted them to understand that actions have consequences, that you can't just hurt people and walk away unscathed." "Did it work?" she asked. "Do you feel better?" I thought about that. "I feel free," I said finally. "I feel like I took control of my own story. And yes, that feels better." I moved into a new apartment in the Pearl District. Smaller than the house, but modern and beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Willamette River. Hardwood floors. Open concept. It felt like mine in a way the house never had. I joined a yoga class. Met a woman named Rachel. She was 49, taught high school English, had a wicked sense of humor. We became friends. Real friends. The kind based on honesty and mutual respect. I also connected with a group of women entrepreneurs in Portland. We met monthly to discuss business investments challenges. These women were smart, driven, supportive. They celebrated my success without jealousy. They understood what it took to build something from nothing. I volunteered my marketing expertise to help women-owned startups. Pro bono work mostly, helping them build brand strategies, connect with customers, grow their businesses. It felt good, meaningful, like I was using what I'd learned for something positive. Life became full in a way it hadn't been during my marriage. Not full of drama or pain or secrets, just full of purpose, of connection, of possibility. One afternoon in March, 2 years after the board meeting, I was at a coffee shop on Burnside, reading a book, drinking a latte. The spring sun was streaming through the windows. Someone sat down at the table next to mine. I glanced over. It was Gregory. He looked older, tired. His hair had gone almost entirely gray. He'd lost weight, not in a healthy way, in a worn-down, defeated way. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then he spoke. "Bonnie, Gregory." He gestured to the empty chair at my table. "Can I considered saying no, but curiosity won. "Go ahead." He sat down, ordered a coffee from the passing barista. We sat in awkward silence until it arrived. Finally, he spoke. "I wanted to say I'm sorry." I didn't respond, just waited. "I was a fool," he continued. "I threw away everything that mattered. My family, my company, my integrity. For what? For an affair that didn't even last." "Yes," I said simply. "You did." He winced. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I know I was wrong. I hurt you. I hurt our kids. I destroyed everything we built together." I took a sip of my coffee. "You didn't destroy everything. You destroyed your part of it. I rebuilt mine." "You did more than rebuild," he said. There was something in his voice, not quite admiration, not quite resentment, something in between. "You destroyed me in return." "No," I corrected. "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure you faced consequences. There's a difference." He was quiet for a long moment. Are you happy now? I thought about that. Was I happy? Yes. But not because of revenge, not because I'd brought him down. I was happy because I'd found myself again, because I'd proven to myself that I was capable, strong, resilient. Yes, I said, I'm happy. Good, he said, and surprisingly, he seemed to mean it. You deserved better than what I gave you. I did. I agreed. He finished his coffee, stood up. Take care of yourself, Bonnie. You too, Gregory. He walked out of the coffee shop. I watched him go, felt nothing, no anger, no satisfaction, no lingering pain. He was just a man I used to know, a man who'd made terrible choices, a man I'd once loved. But that love was gone, burned away by betrayal and time. I went back to my book. The sun was warm on my face. Outside the window, Portland moved at its usual pace. People walking, couples holding hands, families laughing. Life continued, as it always did. I drove home that evening through streets I'd driven for decades, past the park where my children played as toddlers, past the hospital where they were born, past the house Gregory and I had owned together, now lived in by some other family. None of it hurt anymore. It was just part of my history, not my present, not my future. My phone rang as I pulled into my building's parking garage. Emma. Hey, Mom, what are you doing next weekend? Nothing yet. Why? Connor and I want to take you to dinner. Celebrate your birthday a little early. My 55th birthday was coming up in 2 weeks. I'd honestly forgotten. I'd love that, I said. Great. We'll make reservations somewhere nice. You pick the place. After we hung up, I sat in my car for a moment, smiled. My children, successful, happy, healthy, still in my life, still choosing to spend time with me. That was what mattered. That was what I'd protected by fighting back. 3 years have passed since I walked into that board meeting and revealed myself. 3 years since I took control of my own narrative and refused to be a victim. I'm 55 years old now. Tech Vantage is worth $30 million. My 45% stake is worth more than I ever dreamed possible. But I don't spend my days counting money or plotting revenge. I spend them living, really living, traveling, reading, hiking in the Columbia River Gorge, having dinner with Rachel and our other friends, visiting Connor in Seattle, attending Emma's school events when she invites me. I've learned things about myself I never knew. I'm stronger than I thought, more resourceful, more capable of surviving pain and coming out whole on the other side. I learned that betrayal doesn't have to define you. It can refine you. It can show you what you're made of. I learned that patience is more powerful than rage, that strategy beats emotion, that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming so complete, so whole, that their betrayal becomes irrelevant. Gregory and Diane taught me what I didn't want. They showed me through their selfishness and cruelty what kind of person I refused to be. And in fighting back against them, I discovered who I actually was. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I don't hate them. Hate requires emotional investment, and they don't deserve any more of my emotions. I'm free. That's what matters. Free from lies. Free from people who don't value me. Free to build the life I actually want, not the life I thought I was supposed to have. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd taken the easy route. If I just accepted the divorce taken, the settlement moved on quietly. Would I have healed? Probably eventually. But I wouldn't have this sense of agency, this knowledge that I can protect myself, that I can fight back when necessary. There's power in knowing you're not helpless, that even when the worst happens, you have options. You have strength you haven't tapped yet. Sitting here on my balcony watching the sun set over the Willamette River, I feel grateful. Not for the betrayal, never for that, but for what came after. For the person I became when I refused to stay broken. The river flows past my building constant and unstoppable. That's how I think about time now. It moves forward. It doesn't stop for pain or regret or what ifs. You either move with it or you get left behind. I chose to move forward, and I chose to do it on my terms. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after someone you trusted destroyed it? Have you ever had to choose between accepting defeat or fighting back? I want to hear your stories. Drop a comment below and let me know. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel because there are more stories like this one. Stories about strength, survival, and taking back your power. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's going through their own betrayal. Someone who needs to know they're not alone and they're stronger than they think. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope it gave you something to think about, something to hold on to if you ever find yourself in a dark place. Remember that endings can be beginnings, that loss can lead to discovery, and that sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming so whole, so complete, that their betrayal becomes irrelevant. That's exactly what I did, and if I can do it, so can you. Take care of yourselves, be kind to yourselves, and never ever let anyone make you feel small. You deserve better. We all do.